what was the net
Yeah.
people around
Well,
him.
that's what it is, isn't it? Who's this network? How far does it go up and stuff like that?
Yeah, and I suppose we should say, after sort of like, say it was an hour and a half, there was after about an hour of deep interview and lots of, sort of, explanation and everything, it really just kicked off when Dot had half written a text. And in the interview, as it was starting to slowly go against him, he just pressed send, and then one of the armed guards turned, shot the other, and got him out of there.
And Kate must have been knackered.
Well, she said she was, wasn't she? So...
Yeah. But then she said, I'm knackered, and then they started up again, and she was like jumping around, getting on bridges, shooting off bridges.
Yeah.
But I loved everything about this. It was perfectly paced, and I think one of the sort of unsung heroes is Adrian Dunbar.
Yeah.
Because Ted Hastings could be just like the normal boss character, but he's such an honourable man.
Yeah.
And
I think that's what this whole episode shows you, that at the end of the day, the honourable man will win out. He was tempted by the police crime commissioner. He was, he can't deny it.
The beautifully named Jill Bigelow.
Indeed. And he had his, he bought into D.I. Cotton's, rubbish. He bought into that, and he even put him up to the commendation. And I think that's why he went after him so aggressively, because he himself had believed it all, and he started to believe it all against Diaz Arnett. So I think that's why he did it.
And what do you think of and I know they've ended both series like this before, the way they sort of end it with like...
Well, I did remember that they'd ended the series like that before, and I quite like it because it's got an almost kind of documentary type feel to it. That's how a lot of good documentaries end. I remember Making a Murderer ends with kind of like where all those people are now after finished recording the show. So, and the O.J. Simpson one ended like that as well, with a kind of a catch-up. So I quite like that.
And I almost feel like that it's the Line of Duty at its heart is almost like a love story between Steve and Kate.
Yes.
They always sort of go back to that relationship.
Yeah. I didn't need to see her win a commendation medal, but it was an okay, sort of epilogue. A nice turnaround that, actually the good person won it, not him. I mean, there was also a point where it looked very much like he might get away with it in the interviews, because he was pretty much batting back everything, wasn't he? He was...
And it was something that he said to her, wasn't it, that got him?
Well, that's right. He let his guard down, and when he said, "You've been in my house," that was the key moment. I think he realised that once that the investigation had turned on him, and he was actually he knew there were things in his house that were incriminating. What's interesting is, we still don't know for sure who he was texting, saying, "I'm done," and it's done, and so am I. We assume it was to do with the child pornography ring. Not pornography, sorry, the child investigation ring that they sprung, but we don't know that.
Do you think as well, there was a big thing made about the picture of Jimmy Savile?
Oh yes, that was the key thing in episode 5, wasn't it? The fact that when they were investigating the police chief from years ago, they showed a picture of him next to
Fairbank.
That's it, Patrick Fairbank. They showed a picture of him with Jimmy Savile, and do you know what? I think well done, BBC. It wasn't on the screen for very long, and they never named him. They said a certain, a celebrity, and the guy said,
They mentioned Nutri as well, didn't they?
They did. And I think that just adds a very good air of realism to what's going on. It's not burying our head in the sand.
All the stuff with the child sex abuse and stuff, that was handled so well.
Yeah.
And researched well. And it never felt like they were...
It never felt tawdry. It never felt like they were using it to be shocking. It felt realistic.
Praise must go to Jonas Armstrong as well for playing such a, the victim of the abuse, Joe, I think. Is Joe the character?
I'm not sure I'm not sure, but I'll accept I think you've got more of a chance of getting it right than I.
Who was one of the boys alongside Danny Waldron.
Probably good.
I just think all of his scenes have just been, and he must, they must have spent time talking to abuse victims and things like that. And,
yeah, there would be that hope.
Neil Morrissey as well seems to be the only person who's got away with generally being a bit of a...
Well, again, it was, but again, that whole bit, again, was very clever, that you thought they were going to sort of convince Craig Parkinson, but Craig Parkinson acted, I have to say, as much as we hate the character, Craig Parkinson was the tour de force in this episode.
All of them are excellent.
Yeah, and there's not a weak link.
I think they need to introduce like a BAFTA for ensemble cast, because I can't see...
That'd be a good idea.
separating one performance. Yeah. I mean, in the last two series, you've had that, Lenny James and Keely Hawes have been that character, and everyone else has sort of been
the protagonist, as it were,
around them. But this time, it was mainly about the AC-12 characters. We thought at the beginning it would be about, the Danny Waldron.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's worked as completely.
And like none of those characters were in it past. Like, you thought that Arsha Ali and Leanne Best and those would be around. Four characters that they had in the press photos were those four.
And yet none of them made the end of the series.
Certainly, the last two episodes.
That's right. It will be in my top shows of the year. I'm sure yours as well. So
definitely, yeah.
Have you told your friends about this podcast?
Okay, here we go.
No?
It's just not my idea of a good time.
Tell them now.
That's what the people want to hear.
This is the Custard TV Podcast.
Good to the last drop.
From thecustardtv.com.
Should we talk more crime drama? Scott and Bailey finished it.
Can I just say that in my review of Scott and Bailey that the Manchester Transport Police arrive a lot quicker to their scenes than the armed police in Line of Duty. So well done to the Manchester Transport Police, who respond very, very quickly to a phone call.
There's certain parallels in the subplot of Scott and Bailey.
Yes.
With Janet's daughter, again, it's sort of dealing with sort of child's, not sex abuse, but safeguarding issues and things like that. Yeah. And Janet's daughter, Tazy, her boyfriend was sending her pictures, all those pictures of him on her phone, but because he was 15 and she's 16, she's basically breaking the law.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, that story, and also, of course, we had the Darknet, didn't we?
Well, that's right. I think that's what initially drew me into this series, was that idea of they were using the Darknet internet. I watched the final episode about an hour ago, so it's very fresh in my mind. I don't know how long it will stay there. I think overall, although I watched this because you and Luke, asked if I would, and I enjoyed the story arc, I don't feel as if the third episode helped me that much, because now it started to really go back on. I mean, there was obviously a lot of stuff saying that the Janet character was very much the straight-laced, by-the-book example.
Yeah, or more so that I think what they were saying
and that she was more corruptible and more off the radar in this episode. She did things more.
I don't think. I mean, they've both done sort of dodgy things in the past.
Oh, okay.
Neither of them have been like whiter than white, I would say. I mean, Janet had an affair with a co-worker that sort of ended her marriage.
Oh, okay.
Rachel's certainly been the one who's sort of been more off the boil and sort of had more of the story arc. Her character sort of almost settled down now and is about to have a kid and things like that.
But they wrapped up the criminal element of the story quite well. I think if I was a Scott and Bailey fan, I would think, is that it?
If you listen to Luke's interview with Lee Warburton, the writer, he did say that they'd written it as an ending, but then they also said that about the last series. He said that there was a sense of finality there, but there was. He did say that he would like Sally Wainwright to come back and do some more. So whether she will or not, because it was her. She wrote it to begin with, and then Amelia Bullmore, who it was the boss in the rest of the series, wasn't in this series.
Yes, that's right. Talked about, but not in it.
And also, I should mention, because you'd only seen half of the second episode last week, that they killed off one of the long-serving characters, Mitch, who was sort of one of the background players, really.
Yeah.
One of the male cops who don't really get a look in. But
and I think, again, you definitely got that strong female opinion, because there was the scenes, again, where they were saying, in the toilet where Janet was saying, I didn't blaze a trail all these years trying to get my foot in the door to let you two mess it up, which I thought was good.
Really well done. Yeah, and I like. There was even a scene at the end of series 2 where they were sort of toasting Mitch, and Pete, the sort of portly copper, said to Rachel, "Don't be a."
Yeah, and I think, and he was. I think at the beginning of this episode there was that tension when he was like, how quickly you've forgotten, he's been dead, not even dead, and, you're already moving on, and you're not going to let us all go. And I did wonder whether the episode was going to focus more on the internal struggle, but it moved very quickly, and we got the ending of
I think that's
the
what
right
Scott
people being captured. I don't know.
It's,
I
again,
felt like you could have got 4, maybe even 5 episodes out of this series.
Maybe not as much as Line of Duty, but they do have that sense of realism in the interview scenes.
Oh,
I think.
absolutely. And I think
You always see...
even more so because they talk about discovery, which if you watch 24 Hours in Police Custody, there's this idea that what you have to show the people that you've got. And there was very much more, I'll hold on to the hoodie, I'll hold that off in Discovery to see what he does. Yeah. And the wonderful way in which they had the two of them cross each other in the sort of the waiting area, and she said, I want to see if they react. That's very realistic. That is something that, you would see in real life policing.
Would you go back and watch some of the old ones or not?
It's on the list. I have to say it's on the list.
The first couple of series, it was very much on their personal lives as well as their professional lives. But the last series focused a lot more on the cases. There was a case where, they thought a toddler was... not even a toddler.
Oh, yeah, I remember you saying you wanted to... Yeah.
So, yeah, that's Scott and indeed Bailey off our screens for the moment. Shall we talk... I know Luke is going to have a go if we don't talk about Louis Theroux.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
I found this to be very, very hard watching again. Louis Theroux followed around an alcohol assessment unit at King's College Hospital, which is across the road.
To Oblivion, wasn't it, Gary?
What, sorry?
Drinking to Oblivion.
Drinking to Oblivion, yes, sorry, it was the name of the show. And he followed around some people, like he's done in a number of other shows. He'll follow the personal lives and, visit the houses of several people that use the... these aren't just your everyday got drunk, and bash your head. These are people who deal with extreme problems with alcohol and drink to excess. They drink multiple amounts. And this is recorded at King's College Hospital, which is across the road from where I've worked.
Oh,
and
okay.
actually, I knew one of the people.
What, one of the...
yes.
Oh.
The guy who had the very large stomach and was there with his...
The South African man?
No. There was 4 people, really, that he followed.
Not the young lad, Joe.
No, there was 5... So they were right. There was 5 people that he followed. Let's go through them. So, you're right. There was the South African with his European wife who had just a recent bereavement. Wasn't his dad died? And therefore, he'd started drinking again because of that and had several problems. There was the French woman who was a long-time drunk, quite happy with the fact that she drinks 2-3 cans of strong cider a day.
People know I work at the post office, and you often see, certain members of society come in for, the benefits and stuff like that. It's sort of people that I see on a regular basis, and you see relationships, couples like that, just constantly having to go at each other.
Yeah. Then we had a young guy, Joe, as you say, who probably was the most traumatic storyline, because this is the guy that Louis went...
He was the most... I suppose you could say he was the most normal. He was the one that if you saw him down the street, you would think... You wouldn't know that he was...
he was very normal. He blended in with...
The others, they had the stagger, the sort of glazed look in their eye and things like that, whereas Joe, there was that scene with Louis Theroux where they were singing Guys and Dolls.
Yeah. And he did go to his house, and he looked like he was on the road to recovery, and then in a separate episode, he turned up at the hospital again and then discharged himself.
That was great, where they had the whole... Well, not great, but it was really good TV, where the camera followed him out. He would go and get a bottle of vodka, and then he ended up with a bottle of Perrier.
And I know exactly the shot where he went to get that bottle as well. That's just quite.
You know the shot.
I know the shot. I know the off license down there that he would have gone to.
Have you bought anything from that shop before, Gary?
Not Perrier. I'm not Apple.
Have you bought a Kit Kat and a word search?
Possibly a Kit Kat, a word search, and a copy of the Daily Mirror. I don't know.
I'm gonna leave now.
Well, I would wait for the doctor.
No, I think I'm gonna leave. You can
stay.
come with me if you like.
I would stay, Joe, I really would.
I just want to go and get a bottle of vodka.
What makes you think you'd like to do that?
I like the sensation as it goes down my throat, and I want to experience that for one last time. That's why I'm leaving.
The 4th person was the person that I know, which was a gentleman who'd been drinking for a long time and had quite a large extended belly because of the fact that his liver wasn't processing any of the alcohol. I actually worked with his long-time girlfriend, for a long time. I worked with her for about 6 years.
I can't remember that. If I'm honest,
He
I
was
can't remember that.
well. You would have remembered. He was the one that pulled up his top, and you could see he had for his frame. He had a massive belly.
Yes,